Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. This video is going to be what I'm planning on sowing in February. So those of you who are new to my channel, I have an allotment in Oxfordshire, and that will kind of guide you as to whether you should wait a bit longer to start some of these seeds or whether you can think about starting them early. So what is not going to be covered in this video are chilies, peppers and aubergines, because I sowed them in January this year, and you can check out my previous video on that. So, seed organization. I hear some people organize their seeds after type of vegetable or variety, and that some organize them after sowing dates. So I sort of do both. So for long-term storage, when the seeds have been used for that year, they go into compartments within my fold-out folder, whatever they're called. I can never remember what they're called. Into a section. For example, all the brassicas goes into one section. But at the start of the year, this time I did it over Christmas, I sit and go through all the seeds I have, choose what varieties I want to grow that next season, and then I slot them into a section for each month. So the ones I'm sowing in February have now all come out of the section on February. And then at the beginning of each month, I can just look through them and see what I want to sow, what weekend or whenever I have the time, or what can be sown together, for example in a tray, seed tray, or what I will multi-sow. And then once I've sown them, either I put them back into the same month if I'm doing a successional, maybe in 2 weeks time, or if I'm sowing again, maybe say for example fennel, I might sow early in spring but then also after the solstice later that year, and then they go into the July section, for example. So that's how I organize my seeds. I have a whole video on it. I came up with this system in a dream. It's not revolutionary or anything, but it does work for me. So then I don't have to dive through everything, because as a parent of a toddler, you know, time is of the essence quite most of the time. All the time, basically. So anytime I get to sow seeds, I just do not have the time to sit and think about it before. I just need to grab and go, basically. And this system works really well for that. So in this video, I'm gonna go through what I'm planning to sow, and I always wait until Valentine's Day for all of these seeds. I know it's super tempting to start early, but there are a few things to bear in mind. How wet is your plot? If your plot floods, if it gets sopping wet in winter, if it's heavy clay and you just can't even get onto it, maybe hold off a bit. I don't suffer from that problem, but we do get quite cold weather, and our last frost date is mid-May, so I sort of use that as a guide to when to sow things. And then it comes on to, you have to balance getting the most out of your seeds, and you have to balance when you like to eat things. So, for example, kale. I only sow kale in the summer, and then I harvest through the autumn and through winter and into spring, and then they start to flower. So sowing kale in spring will inevitably speed their bolting up, right? But that's not really a problem. If you really want to eat kale, you just have to sow more often. You have to use more seeds and sow more plants. It's not the most efficient way of growing kale, and the plants won't grow to their full potential. To do that, you have to grow them from summer and into the colder months. But there's nothing wrong with eating bolting brassicas. You know, they're super tasty still. You just have to be aware that it's maybe not the most optimum time, right? So it's all about, do you want that perfect crop, or do you really want it all year round? So then you have to think about space. Yes, it's possible to grow Brussels sprouts to harvest from a late summer, but they take up a lot of space. And isn't there lots of other vegetables that you would rather be growing? That's the case for me, so I only grow them for Christmas and through winter, and I'm harvesting mine from November until probably March, right? So it's all about finding what you want to get out of your seeds and what works in your microclimate that you have, and the the guidelines on the packets are just that, they're guidelines, they're blanket, and they suit everyone, but not great, if you see what I mean. Like they have to cover all bases, basically. That was a very long rant about seeds, but basically there's you know, plants are not on and off, you know, they're on a very fluid scale, so you can get away with a lot with plants, with vegetable plants. Things that you cannot change, however, are the frosts. So a lot of vegetables are obviously sensitive to that. So for me, it's not worth starting tomatoes until later in the year. Other things like squash, cucumbers, beans, things like that, they're sensitive to frost, so there's no point starting them too early. You're just gonna be overrun with seedlings in your house or in your heated greenhouse or in your veranda, whatever, you know. So you want to space is precious in spring, and you just have to be choosy. And believe me, I know how tempting it is to start everything all at once as early as possible. The change I have done this year is to grow my chilies, aubergines and sweet peppers under grow lights. That means I can free up window space later on for tomato plants and chitting my potatoes and all this sort of stuff, right? So it's all about finding what works for you. Right, enough talking about starting seeds. Let's talk about what seeds I am going to start. So first off, I got fennel. I've got 3 varieties of fennel, and they are really best grown after the summer solstice. It's only because I really like fennel, really love fennel. I'm growing it in spring, because I'd say maybe about half of them are going to bolt, if not more, depending on what weather we have. So I am not able to water them enough, and the increasing light levels will just encourage them to bolt. So it's a really, really hard one to get to swell up, but I really love it, so it's a compromise I'm doing. I am willing to sacrifice the space to get at least some harvest. So in second I have 2 brassicas. One is a kale, and then it's a broccoli. So broccoli is a cross between standard and Chinese broccoli. So I've grown it. I grew it into autumn this year, and the same with the kales. And success was a bit mixed, so I'm going to try it from spring now and see if they perform any better. And I've got spring onions, just normal white ones, and then a red beard bunching onion. So I got a selection of onion seeds to sow. One of them is really an overwintering one, but I'm going to try it from spring and see how it goes, but otherwise I'll sow it again in autumn. And then I have this walking onion, right? So it's like a top setting, so instead of having the bulb swell at the bottom, it swells at the top. Several onions, I guess, swell from the top, and then it gets heavy, and then it topples over, and then they start to root where they fall. So that's what it means by walking. So it's more like a novelty thing, right? So I tried it last year, but I think I overwatered them when I planted them in little plugs, and so I want to have another go this year. And then just shallots. Turnips, I have quite a lot of different types of turnips. My favourites is the purple top Milan and Nave de Nancy, so they're both white with a purple top, and those are my absolute favourites, and they're really, really tasty. As I said, I have a lot of greens, like a lot of salad greens. These are saved in a doggy poop bag. These are saved perpetual spinach from my neighbour, but otherwise I've got but yeah, lots of interesting ones. And one I'm very excited about is this seed mix, and from Real Seeds, and it's just got lots of really pretty looking multicolored salads, you know. It's really, really cool. I'm really excited about that. And spring is the really absolute best time to grow lettuces. So I've already grown broad beans and field beans for overwintering, but I'm going to sow again in spring to extend the harvest. I've got a few varieties, way too many packages, but in case the mice eats them, right? Then I've got radishes, My absolute favourite is the French breakfast, but I do have this mystery mix as well. It does give all sorts of cool colours, which is quite fun to have in spring. It's just, so I really find that radishes only grow well for me from the earliest now in spring, and then it sort of becomes just eaten by slugs and whatnot. So it's just not fun to pick them anymore. So I just grow a few sowings in February or early March, and then I just put them away until next year. We don't eat loads of cabbage in my household, but we do eat some. So I've got 2 early varieties, one red and one green, I guess you would say. And it's a good time to start them as well. Carrots. So Amsterdam forcing is one of my absolute favorites because it's so easy to grow from early in the year. And I actually sowed the last of the packet the last day of November, which is the last day it says on the packet to sow them. And as the name suggests, they are for forcing for early, right? And the germination in November has been great, and they're growing away under their fleas, and that's the trick to growing them early, is to use fleas or a cloche to keep the cold wind away from them and to slightly warm the soil up for them. But this is a great one if you want to have an early start for your carrots. So I've got some peas. I've already sown peas for shoots early February. Actually, it was the end of January because it was part of my Grow Along for Life through Instagram and through my email list. So, but I will probably put another one on now mid-February, just as a comparison for myself, really, to see if there is any benefit or if it was detrimental to sowing that early. So the second sowing mid-February, we'll see how that compares. And this is just a really sweet variety that would also then give sweet shoots. And if you've been following me for a while, specifically on Instagram, you know I love kohlrabi, so I grow it several times a year. And my absolute favorite is this variety called Gigant, which gives a huge kohlrabi, specifically if you sow it in the summer, and it grows into the slower growing into autumn, but it's fine for growing from spring as well. And then I have the Azer. Azer, it's more pretty than excellent. Gigant, it grows huge and it's still tender. It's amazing. So you get a lot more of kohlrabi for your buck. Kohlrabi bang for your buck, as opposed to the Azer, which is, if it goes beyond tennis ball size, it's just inedible. It becomes like a piece of wood, so you don't want that. But Gigant, I mean, if you like kohlrabi, it's the one to grow. So February is also a good month to grow your herbs, specifically coriander, dill and parsley. So I've only got flat leaf parsley this year, but I am looking for curly leaves as well. It's the one I grew up with. Flat leaf is maybe easier to put into cooking, potentially. I don't really know, but it feels easier. Curly leaf, I've always mainly seen as decoration, but I miss it. You know, it adds a texture when you eat it as well as just the flavor of it. And then I have 2 types of coriander. And on this is a free packet of seeds from Gardeners World, and on the back of it says, tip, coriander dislikes being transplanted. Something I've never found. And then dill, you know, I'm Swedish and we love our dill, so. And this is just cheap seeds from 2018, and they're still good, I hope. We'll see how many of these still germinate this year. And one of my favorites is broccoli. So I've got 3 varieties here. But really the one I recommend is the Marathon F1. It was great as an F1 variety, but it was so good at producing these perfectly formed heads, main heads, and then you cut that off, and that's your broccoli or calabrese, and then it shoots up lots of more smaller and smaller heads. So I was harvesting from these plants for months, you know. They were excellent, and so I'm really excited to grow them again. I'll see if I'll start the other ones. You never know, I might like them too. So last but not least, Luffa. So you might have seen it doing the rounds on Instagram. Everyone seems to be excited for growing Luffa. but it is a tricky one. So you definitely need to have a polytunnel or a greenhouse to grow it if you're in the UK, because they are worm-loving plants and they are scrambling, climbing huge tall plants, so you need the space for it as well. I'm having my second greenhouse put up, I hope in time, if I can ever get back out to the pot, and I'm really willing to give them a go this year. So you can eat them as a vegetable when they're young, much like a courgette. Not that we need any more courgette type plants, but if you let them grow and dry on the plant, or to the point where they are dry and you can just peel off, they have this sponge-like formation on the inside, and you literally cut it up, use it as a loofah sponge in the bath or in the shower. So it's like the ideal Christmas present, isn't it? Homegrown Christmas present for Christmas. So I bought this packet of seeds myself, and I got this sent to me by my seed crit Santa. They are quite tricky to germinate, so I've been reading a bit about it, and I think I'm gonna pre-germinate them in kitchen roll, just in a little hot chamber on top of the radiator, and we'll see if that works. So this I will start in this week's vlog, I believe, and then we'll see how many days it takes if they germinate. And I have 2 packets, so I'm hoping at least I'll get 1 plant, well, hopefully more plants, but at least 1 loofah at the end of it. So I forgot my cauliflowers. I have 1 packet of magic mix cauliflowers. So it's a mix of lots of different colours, including Romanesco as well, which is sort of not a cauliflower, but it's not broccoli either, so it's sort of something in between. Anyway, it includes those, and it is intended to extend your cauliflower season, so I like that mix. You just have to try to be lucky and get some of each variety, but you know, it's quite fun as well. So yes, I'll be quite busy from Valentine's Day. It's actually only 2 weekends to sow all those seeds, and they're gonna take up a lot of space in the house when they germinate, and then inside the greenhouse once they've all popped up again. So I definitely better get on the building of my greenhouse and putting the greenhouse shelving back together again, so I have space for all these. But it's an exciting time, isn't it? I'm really excited to get going, and now I can tell that the light is going. It's going all black and white, but yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video of what I'm sowing. It's again what I'm sowing, so don't take this as this is a rule of what you must be sowing, but it's what I'm sowing, it's what works for me. You can take inspiration from it. Feel free to ask any questions you might have, and yeah, enjoy it, get going, sort your seeds out and start sowing, but wait until Valentine's Day. And before I forget, the reason why I'm waiting till Valentine's Day is because the light levels. So the light levels around mid-February reaches to about 10 hours a day, and that is crucial for most plants. Before then, they're sort of not active growing yet, so they need those 10 hours of light, and that signals them that it's their active period and they will grow well. So before then, you kind of need grow lights, yeah.